Can applaud, yeah. Yeah, I'm very happy to be here. First time in Ecom Expo. And I have myself a very interesting connection with all of these conferences. You know, on one side, you just go here, you should like network, yeah, sales, information, yeah, very interesting topics. On the other hand, you just hang out with all the couple of people that you already met, screenshot some of the slides, and go home in the same place as you came here. So I wish that this my presentation will be a bit of a different, and you all will understand and know more about like this interesting field of AI and SEO, intersection of these two topics. That is very popular right now, and there are a lot of misunderstandings in the space. Because on one hand, there are a lot of people that say this is total scam. You know, you don't need to understand nothing about it. It's the same as it was before. On the other hand, it's like a new field that's very important for every business. You know, you won't be visible in any marketing channels if you won't be visible in ChatGPT, AI tools, Perplexity, and stuff like that. So I hope that today I'll share some insights and share some practical tips and tricks for you to understand like what you need to do with your businesses, e-commerce, agencies, SaaS, or whatever business you have, for you to maximize your opportunities and visibility in these AI search engines. And a couple of points that we could like dissect before moving forward into more practical side is that, of course, change and how we find information, how we find businesses, how we get information about any important topic that we have is changing. Okay, so we tend to look more into AI engines for recommendations for tools, for businesses that we want to interact, for any products inside the internet. You know, if you want to buy shoes, if you want to buy dresses or whatever we ask ChatGPT for the answer. And in fact, there are more than 2.5 billion conversations happening inside ChatGPT alone every day. Yeah, so it's a big number. Of course, it's not matching the Google right now in any means, but still it's a very growing, in a very growing path, you know, to someday match even the most largest search engine. And in my presentation, I will share you a couple of tips and tricks, you know, for you to really understand how this field moving and what you need to understand in order to maximize your opportunities. And moving into a practical side, what is important and what we see with our clients and with multiple businesses around the world is that already AI is bringing some of the traffic to your websites, if you know it or you don't know it, if you track it or not. You know, from 1.1% to 15% of the traffic is already generated by AI. You know, and the number might be mixing in different businesses and different fields, but this is a consensus that we see across multiple industries, and this traffic is generating in a very interesting way, you know, because ChatGPT AI traffic is more conversion-based. There are multiple businesses that see this result. So from newsletter companies or like media companies to SaaS to e-commerce businesses, there are multiple case studies that we see that it generates like $2,000, $3,000 per month just from AI traffic alone. And what's important, that AI traffic converts way better than traditional search. Okay, so it's also important feature that we talk more into the presentation, that AI generates more conversions than organic search engines or any others. So a couple of points that I wanted to make before moving to the practical side. And we'll start from thinking and talking about how to really optimize for AI visibility and what you need to do in order to be #1 response in ChatGPT. So when we talk about AI optimization, we start with 5-point method. And we'll start by first tip and trick that I give you is identifying your prompts or the keywords that you are most interested in order to maximize your visibility. So what are these prompts and how you need to think about AI search optimization? You need to start by actual questions that your potential customers might ask. You know, so if you sell shoes, of course, some potential questions might be, what are the best shoes for running, for women, for kids, or whatever product or questions you might have. You should start by these prompts, and when we help companies, help our clients to maximize their visibility, we tend to start from a way ground, understanding what are their ideal customers are looking for, what's important for them, and what type of information we would like to have. So prompts, okay? How to find these prompts and how to think about them. So I tend to recommend that you need to start by understanding your highest commercial intent prompts. So what I mean by that, of course, the most buying related questions that your customers might ask. So it shouldn't be like informational topic, like how to like lace your shoes or whatever. If you keep using like that shoes e-commerce example, and in comparison, you need to think about like really high commercial intent prompts or questions. So where to find these shoes, how to find these shoes, what are the best shoes, and stuff like that. So these are the questions that you need to think about in order for you to identify the most important prompts. And what's also important is some people, ask myself or our team, how to find these prompts, what you need to look for. And we think that you really need to understand like the exact prompt that your potential customer might ask. So you need to, they think, or other people think, that you need to do it word by word, to find the exact pattern or words that your customers are asking. And in fact, it's not a very best strategy because AI always understands the context, and you don't need to put the same words word by word in order to give and get the response from AI exactly as your customers might ask. Why? Because AI will still summarize a different information, be it a ChatGPT, Perplexity, or Gemini, or whatever tool you'll be using. It will understand the context and understands underlying patterns of your brand recognition across whole web. And if you want to optimize for, you should think about in topics, so topics of your business, the most important categories that you are using. Okay, so what type of categories there be? I have a practical example from one of our clients as well. This brand is related to gifts and gift experience in many different ways. And instead of just speaking about like exact prompts that you would like to track, best experience gifts, best Christmas gifts for couples and stuff like that, we categorize these prompts into different clusters or topics, so Christmas gifts, couple gifts, and stuff like that in order to cluster all of these prompts that are important for our particular business, and this way we see the whole field, on how you're optimizing for AI and not only just one particular prompt, that you might be interested in. Another thing that you could do, if you want to like find these prompts that your potential customers are asking, you could go to ChatGPT or Perplexity, and we have this auto recommendation tab as well, where you just start pressing your potential keyword or topic that you are interested in, and it will give you some suggestions, what type of questions your potential customers might be asking. Another tip that I can give you is understanding how AI thinks and using the reasoning regime or model, inside ChatGPT or any other tool. So you might already encounter that you are using like ChatGPT. You could press this reasoning on or pro model, and check how AI searches for information, on what's important for them. So in this example, I just asked something about my tool, and I saw all the reasoning behind ChatGPT response and how it think about my brand, what information it looked for, where the sources that this particular tool wanted to research before giving me the response. And you could think about and could implement this process all by yourself, just think, identifying your prompts, thinking about what your customers' questions are, and just asking them inside different AI engines and looking for like the answers that it gives if you're visible or not. And I assume that most of the people that are in this hall, are already interested in AI SEO, and maybe you already did something similar. This is like really time-intensive process, and it might take a lot of time, if you do it manually with hundreds and hundreds of informational units. So that's why we created this tool. It's also called AI Clicks. Yeah, I'm a founder of it, and you can do this whole process automatically. So find these prompts, research it, and get the response and your couple of informational points that are interesting for you. So you could either do that manually or with a software that you can do that. I will talk more about the tool itself in the meantime as well, but the process still tends to be pretty similar. So when you understand these prompts, when you think about the questions that you are interested in, the next step for you will be to understand how you're doing, how you're doing inside these prompts. Are you visible or not? What type of information there are for you to actually optimize for it and understand how to make these certain actions that will make your brand appear as a #1 result. So when you ask these questions, you will see that you will get like a lot of different responses from AI. So I have this example with hosting providers. So what's the best hosting provider might be a question for hosting company. You will get the results. You will get a list of possible answers from AI, and in every way, it might be a bit of a different, So you would ask the same question for ChatGPT, you'll get one answer, for Perplexity another, for Google Gemini third one, and et cetera, et cetera. And what's important that you will ask this question even like in 5 minutes, 10 minutes after, and you still might get a little bit of a different answer. So a lot of variations in this field, and because of how AI tools are rated, how we work, we're random in their essence, So each and every time you will get a bit of a different responses, not speaking about, your memory, the history of your chats, it also tends to change the results that you are getting. So this field is really fluctuates, and if you want to feel and see the whole underlying patterns that are important for you, looking at this data in a continuous way, checking this information like every day, every week, it's really important for you to take a look at the underlying patterns of your brand and how you're visible inside AI. So why I'm talking about this? Because you need to ask these questions every time, and that's why while I was creating this tool that helped you to optimize for, we thought about the continuous patterns that you need to check and analyzing your information daily to see most important informations that are important for you. So your visibility metrics, how you're mentioned, what are the sentiment inside your answers, and how AI speaks about it. It's a couple of these important data points, for you need to track in order to really optimize for AI. So your visibility score, your mentions, and stuff like that is really important for you to check and understand how you're doing inside these engines. So you can do this either manually or with a tool that is important for you. Moving third, the third point that I want to make, when you understand the prompts, when you understand how you're doing inside these AI search engines, of course, the third the goal of you is to be actually featured, because you will see that in some prompts you are not visible, in our prompts you are visible. And what are the actual steps that you need to make in order to optimize for AI visibility. And the third, and the goal on the way to do that is, of course, to be featured in as many places as possible for AI to pick the information. Okay, so AI doesn't have its own indexing in its own way. It actually just picks the information from different search engines, be it Google, Bing, Reddit, YouTube, and all the different channels. And because of that, it just looks for different information inside the internet. You really need to make sure that your spread, your brand information will be spread in as many places as possible for you to actually reference it. So when we ask these questions, when we ask ChatGPT Perplexity responses in each and every way, we'll get some links, that AI references in its responses. So what we do, usually we just analyze the most important URLs that are cited the most frequently. If it's like the popular, if every AI tool references it, what we do, we try to optimize for them and to be visible in these URLs. Okay, so we can track these URLs manually. We could track these tools with a tool, but the process itself remains the same. We want to be counting these URLs and making sure that we appear in these sources when we try to optimize for AI. So what are the actual steps that you can do in order for you to optimize for AI visibility? Is, of course, you create a list of the most important URLs that AI answers while speaking about your brand. Prioritize them on the frequency that you have. So try to look at the most popular URLs, and of course you can try to mimic similar topics and write additional content about the topic. You could try to buy your mentions inside these URLs. You could try to implement some digital PR strategies in order to buy as many mentions as possible, in the topics that you are interested in. And what is also important, that AI really has its own tendencies in order to, for it to cite different sources, So it tends to cite a lot of YouTube content, especially if you're using Perplexity. It tends to cite LinkedIn content, because it's also starting to indexing right now. So it's not only about the blue links, the Google search engine, but also about different social media channels that AI tends to cite, and you also need to be mentioned as many places as possible. And we are working with different brands, or our clients as well. We try to repurpose the content, that we created in one blog or in one long-form format, and spread it across different channels, directories, and websites, in general. So you also need to think about where you can spread this information for AI to reference, your brand, and the questions that you are interested in. So prioritizing sources is the third tip that I can give you. Another interesting topic that I want to cover, and it's also gaining a lot of traction, and it's related to Reddit. So Reddit is another channel that is getting a lot of traction because of AI engines. We are starting to appear multiple agencies, services, and softwares that help you to appear on Reddit, just purely because it's a very good engine, for you to get constant attraction, mentions of your brand, customers coming from this forum, in order to find information, to find recommendations that are based on user-generated content that is, not salesy content as they tend to think, and stuff like that. And of course, Reddit is also connected to AI search optimization, because AI loves to cite Reddit sources and Reddit threads, in its responses. And whenever you will ask some questions about your brand, about your recommendations, you will also see that Reddit is in top 5, top 3, responses or domains that are being cited. So you can tend to see that Reddit responses are in 3 or 5 position. There are multiple research done on the topic. So this one is done by Ahrefs, and we saw that Reddit is number 3 response, on top domains in general. If you just go to Perplexity or any other engine, you will also see this response are getting a lot of Reddit mentions. So why? Because these companies, AI companies, are buying Reddit data for them to train its responses based on user-generated content. And of course, there are a lot of data that I could share you for the topic's importance. But what's really important is, of course, how you can optimize for it and how you can appear in these responses. So there are two ways, or like a couple of strategies that you could start implementing right now in order to appear on Reddit. And of course, you need to start by just finding actual communities or threads or like forums that you should be interested in, because your ideal customers are already hanging out there, and if you want to optimize for it, you need to find these communities. And there are multiple ways you can do this. So you could just go to Reddit itself, write some keywords or questions that you're interested in, and you will see like a lot of communities already that is speaking about your brand or the topic that you are interested in. So you could use like Reddit search engine in a way. You could also just go to Google and ask like questions that you are interested in, and you will also see that Reddit will appear at the top of the responses in many different ways and in many different questions that you are the most important one. So that's using Google. Another point, of course, you could just use any type of software that is optimizing for Reddit and helping you to do and find this information inside engine. So by just inserting your brand, you could also get a huge list of recommendations that will count all the Reddit threads or comments that you should be interacting with. So ourselves are also using like this Reddit tool a lot. Why? Selling our tools, selling our services inside Reddit, because we see that we can get a lot of traction just by creating content on Reddit, by being helpful for our audience and for them to find like actual answers inside this channel. So how we do that and how we engage, we try to not be salesy. We try to be like very frank, about our product, services, and any important information that we ask. So this is an actual comment from myself, and I like tried to answer these questions by finding the Reddit threads that are interested, that people are interested about our tool. I just say, okay, use this tool or software because it's this and that, helpful for my particular clients. And sometimes I just say, okay, I'm the founder of the tool. Sometimes I can just say, okay, this is the recommendation because I used this tool and stuff like that. So tend to be like not salesy, be short and frank, about the topic that you're interested in, because Reddit is really harsh on like actively promoting it, mentioning the links and stuff like that. So Reddit is important. I hope that some of you will already try to implement some of the stuff that I shared for you to really be visible in AI. And the last part or the last tip that I can give you is, of course, about your own website content, on how you can optimize your content for you to really appear in AI search. So we have multiple strategies on how you can optimize your content or blog or any other like website content inside your branded website. I will share a couple of tips for that as well. Number one tip, the most easiest one you can do is actually just go to ChatGPT and ask like about your product and what important information ChatGPT looks for while recommending your product. So it's also one simple strategy that you could use. In this case, I just asked what considerations you have when you are recommending like the best AI visibility tracker or my own product. And ChatGPT will just give you a list of like qualities and like safety, price, any other means for it to really understand what are the most important features. And when it will give you a list, you could just try to make sure that you are referencing yourself as the most safest, the most have like the biggest features and this and that, based on the response that AI give you. Another question that you need to answer yourself is, of course, are you giving like the best possible responses to your customers? Because all of these prompts that you already generated in the first step, you need to make sure that you respond to these questions based on your content. So whenever you are creating content on your website, you need to make sure that you reference it, the exact questions that your users might ask. And it's really important because AI looks for information, and if you are like original source, that you're like providing actual benefit for your clients, of course you will be cited as a possible response. And there are a lot of research done, on how we can optimize for like exact strategies, technicalities. This is an extract from a research paper on generative engine optimization. So basically, how you should write, what type of content is being cited the most, and what we found, we found that it's really important for AI to find the information as fast as possible. So you need to answer the question of your user, in first sentences and paragraphs for you to really be referenced for AI, because AI doesn't love to look at your 2,000 or more blog posts. And it wants to find the information as fast as possible, and you should make sure to answer it maybe even in title, introduction, or meta description. Try to be like frank and concise when you are writing this blog. Try to include one idea per section for you to really structure, easy to understand way, and use like proper heading structure and like you could say classical SEO hygiene, for it to be referenced. So that are a couple of strategies and tips that we are already using. So to wrap up this presentation, we start by understanding what are the prompts, what are the questions that users are asking. After that, we try to check the results and see what type of responses AI gives you. We try to be referenced in all the sources that AI gives us. And after that, we try to extend our visibility in different like marketing channels as Reddit, different social media platforms, and of course, to update our content as well. So that are 5 tips. If you're interested in learning more, or just trying the tool, trying the service, you could also scan this QR code for yourself, and see how it can help you to be visible in AI. So thank you for watching, and see you soon.
Rokas, thank you very much for your presentation. Really interesting and really exciting about the whole ideas that you presented. There are a couple of questions. Audience is really eager to learn more about AI from you. One of the things that was asked is like, you keep mentioning Reddit. Reddit. Does it mean that if there's one thing that you can take away from your presentation is that you have to be present on Reddit with your answers, and then maybe ChatGPT will catch up with your company?
Yeah, so it's really important for you to be. Of course, it depends really on the industry, the niche, the type of services that you're doing. But if you're like, you could say a classical e-com, that is selling digital or like physical products, I think it's really important for you to be, and at least try to be referenced, in a couple of ways. Yeah.
All right, and a couple more. Does your application, the one that you have created, does it work with Lithuanian language?
Yes, it's multi-language. We could track different regions, different languages. Yeah.
All good. And then, without traditional SEO, is it possible to have a good visibility, for AI answers?
Well, it's really connected, so we tend to start with a classical SEO, you could say, for us to have like a background for optimizing for AI. We have a couple of ways and strategies that brands without SEO is already referenced by AI and vice versa. But the best possible way, of course, is to have good SEO and after then just try to optimize for AI as well.
So the traditional suggestion would be start with SEO, fix your sites, make content on your website properly, and then what's next?
And then you can move on, with like Reddit and multiple like road hacking for AI visibility. Yes.
Amazing. Thank you, Rokas, for all of your insights and for sharing the whole information.